All right, here we are again on the I Am podcast. I'm here with my boy Emilio. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Going good. We had our little conversations before, but we're doing well. We're doing well. Congratulations on recently getting married. I happen to be a part of that. So
thank you very much for being a part of it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks for the congratulations.
So how is the married life now?
It's great.
Yeah?
Yeah, everything's going well.
How has it been, 2 weeks now?
Yeah, a little over 3 weeks.
Oh, man, look, he's made it that far.
I know.
All right, there's hope out there for me.
3 weeks.
Right? And then how was the mini honeymoon? How was that?
It was great. We went up to Solvang and stayed at a little bed and breakfast that was like kind of off the beaten path. So it was nice. Did some wine tasting up there. Ate at a few cool restaurants, and kind of just hung out and decompressed from all the stress of wedding planning.
The madness and stuff. As far as like the wedding planning stuff, did everything go as planned?
I think so. For the most part, it did. What I did since I work in a lot of weddings and kind of have a knowledge of that, I made our timeline of how everything would work, because I've been in so many weddings where everything runs behind. You have to cut a bunch of stuff. Okay. So the first thing I did was like kind of construct a basic timeline. Okay. And then put buffers in there. So like, okay, if something goes over, we got 5 minutes here, we got 5 minutes there. Yeah. And just to make sure it wasn't too high stress.
Okay, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you need a wedding consultant, all right, for your timeline, Emilio is your guy, all right? All right, man. So I kind of wanted to bring you back, or we're kind of redoing this podcast because we're adding video. To kind of go talk about our relationship, about with myself and you, and how we know each other and how we go back. Emilio's actually one of my best friends. Known Emilio since preschool. It's been a while. Yeah. And he's been helping me along the lines of the podcast and getting this launched, and interviewing different people and kind of giving me advice on and direction on which direction I should take this podcast and what it's going to be about, how to launch it, so on and so forth. So he's definitely plays a big factor in it. So wanted to come on and interview you again. But give me a little background on yourself, brother. Like as far as like music, growing up, sports. You could even talk about how we first met. So kind of a little background info on yourself. Yeah.
So I grew up in Hacienda Heights, just like you. We both went to St. Mark's, where we went preschool all the way through 8th grade, and then we both went to Bishop Amat. Went there, all through high school, as well as Anthony. And we met through there and have been friends ever since. And we played soccer for a long time together. Played ASO, and I think did we play club together as well for a little bit? Yeah,
WSC.
Yeah, that's right. The Quakes. Yep. Right. Yeah. Yep. So we did that, and always been hanging out and kind of figuring stuff out together in terms of like business stuff, and also being people who work for themselves, kind of trying to figure that out and bounce ideas off of each other. And aside from that, just being friends, like you said, you were in my wedding, and
I was lucky enough, right? No, but that's true, Emilio. We talk about the whole business stuff, bouncing off ideas. And the cool thing about our friendship, and that's very rare or doesn't happen too often, or at least I haven't heard about too often, is me and Emilio can go periods of time, without talking to each other, and be perfectly fine when we come back up. Hey, man, you didn't fucking hit me up. What the hell? You're a bad friend. I want to talk to you. It's like, we get busy. People get busy. You're in business. You're gigging all the time. I mean, you're married now. I'm busy, have this business. I always got a shit ton of stuff going on. And I like it that you don't take it personal. I don't take it personal. It's just, life happens. Yeah. Like I said, we've been trying to do a better job at staying and connected a little bit more, because, the friendship is definitely very valuable. But, business happens. So as far as your business endeavors, kind of, I want you to go into play or into description about that, because this podcast is a little bit of business driven, and I have a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff on the show. So I kind of want to talk about a little bit about your gigging in the music industry and how you got started with that.
Yeah. So kind of after college, or actually throughout college, I started working towards music stuff, and that's what I went to college for. I got a degree in music, and started doing that after college, a lot more obviously. And to me, it was kind of natural because my dad is an entrepreneur and has his own business and works for multiple companies aside from his own business.
Kind
and
of
so
butt in real quick, if you can give a little cap on what your dad does.
Yeah, so my dad works with a lot of kind of community building and community involvement, and he also has done a number of books. So he has a publishing company called Sueños Publications LLC that he has released a series of children's books on, as well as writing a bunch of curricula for the company that he works for, NCN, National Compadres Network. And that works with a lot of underprivileged communities, especially Black and brown communities, that have trouble in terms of kind of getting kids to not go through whether that's the jail system or kind of just building up community and culture and things like that so that they have more to work with.
Yeah. And the reason why, I don't mean to cut you off, and the reason why I wanted you to mention that is to show that, you have a lot of experience or a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure to that entrepreneur mindset. And it's probably reflected on to what you do currently with your music stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So even just growing up, kind of seeing that, and my dad being on business trips a lot, like kind of understanding that, as well as just hearing him on the phone, kind of negotiating contracts, to him sometimes taking me on those business trips and kind of learning how he does this thing in terms of how he presents himself and how he is able to negotiate things to work for him as a business, but also him as a person. And yeah, kind of just that entrepreneur style instead of just thinking in a more conventional style of having like a 9-to-5 or a ton of different jobs out there that are different than that.
Yeah.
So just taking all of those into account, and that plays a big part in what I do now, because now I'm a musician and I have my own business technically, but a lot of what I do is consulting and getting hired by different companies to do work for them, whether that's doing music for weddings, or whether that's doing music for churches, like every week on their like normal services, or whether that's I accompany on guitar at an elementary school, and I do a lot of teaching, and so all of those kind of different things compile into what I do as a whole for my business.
Okay, cool. So as far as the gigging and stuff like that, what you just do wedding gigs, or kind of if you can explain to people like what type of gigs do you do, or because I know I've watched you at a bar/restaurant. You do the wedding gigs. How many bands are you a part of?
I guess technically 3 or 4 that I play with regularly, but also a large part of what I do is freelance stuff as well. So kind of my one thing that I figured out slightly was to have kind of a baseline. Right. And for me, since in terms of my business stuff and in terms of my income.
Okay.
So
you don't make or take anything less than this, or baseline. What do you mean by the baseline?
Well, kind of my bread and butter.
Okay.
In terms of business stuff. So a lot of that will come through the church gigs that I do.
Okay.
Because I'm a worship leader at 2 United Methodist churches. Right. And then I cantor at a bunch of other Catholic churches. And there are 3 churches that I perform music at and plan music for and help with the liturgy and all that every week, right? So that's kind of my bread and butter, and I know that's there every week. I'm on like a salary with them. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I have. Like, if everything goes wrong, all my bills are paid.
Okay,
still, and from there, it's really nice because then I don't have to think so much about how are like my basic necessities taken care of.
Yeah,
and
it's like a stress.
It's just a little bit more freedom in terms of creativity. So from there, I if there's a gig that I really don't want to do, I don't have to take it.
Yeah,
so that's nice. But at the same time, I like being busy, and there are a lot of things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So there's a wedding company that I play with a lot called Mrs. Time Entertainment. And so I play guitar and sing for them. And so a lot of times on Saturdays, that's what I'm doing with them. If I don't have a wedding booked with them or an event booked with them, oftentimes I'll be playing like bar, restaurant gigs and stuff like that. And so that's where a lot of the freelance stuff comes in, because people will need a guitar player or a singer. And for me, one thing that I learned was kind of being able to diversify a little bit. So being able to do those two things at the same time, singing and playing guitar, really helps me get gigs and keep gigs.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to pay or contract two separate people. You can just get one.
Is that pretty often that they have to contract out to two different people, or are there a lot of people out there that play guitar and sing? I mean, obviously, you have to be good.
There's at least in terms of how I feel,
quality, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot less than I originally thought.
Okay.
Which is good for me, because then I get a lot more calls to do both.
Yeah.
You know, so that's nice to be able to do that, and especially for, like, I know also if I'm kind of running low on money or I need to save up for something, I can go and advertise to like a restaurant and need nothing but myself.
Oh, okay.
You know, so like if I'm like, all right, I'm strapped for money or I need some extra income, I can go pitch myself to a few different restaurants, pick up a few extra, get a few extra gigs, and then be fine. You know, whereas like if you only have one thing, then it's a little harder to do that. So
yeah, no, I completely understand, and it's funny that you talk about that baseline income, because I feel that when you're in business and you do have that baseline income, it frees up a little bit more space for creativity, because you're not stressing over a bunch of different stuff. Because I know when we first started the gym and any other businesses that I've started, I've noticed that when I'm stressing over to make ends meet, it's hard to grow the business, because you're so focused on, okay, well, what do I got to do to keep this open, or what I got to do to keep this running, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel that's super important that entrepreneurs have that baseline before they, start to grow their business or think outside the box, because, it relieves a lot of stress for you. I feel it's super, super important. It's a good point that you brought that up. As far as music goes, dude, how did you get into music? I know that you said that your dad used to play, but I remember the first time that we played flute or you picked up your first guitar. What intrigued you, or what, made you gravitate towards music?
Yeah, so my dad played music and is still a musician, but he played a lot more for 30 years. And so just having that in his background, music was always encouraged in my household. I never had to learn any instruments, but my parents did encourage me during the summers to try different instruments and just see if I liked any of them. So I tried flute, I tried guitar, I think when I was like 8, and I didn't really kind of pick it up too well. But then I think when I was 12 or 13, about that age, we both tried guitar a little bit then. And I took to it a little bit more. One, I think because we were playing soccer at that time, and I was kind of, I don't know, just not as into it as before. And also I thought I had like some grass allergies, so I was trying to find some other things to do.
I remember that.
I was trying to find some other things that didn't have to do with like grass, right? And then the other thing that kind of played a factor was my parents were going through a divorce at that time, right? And so having kind of an outlet for stress and an outlet to be creative and kind of get things out was important for me. And so one thing that I really enjoyed was running. So I would just like go street running or like running on hikes and stuff like that. And the other thing was music. So I started doing that, and the second time picking up guitar, having more of a purpose and a why, really kind of had pulled me into that, So I did that, and then was playing guitar, and my dad encouraged me to sing a little bit as well. So did that for a little bit, and kind of mostly on my own. I played in a band in 8th grade, and had that little our one little concert in 8th grade.
Sketchy Styles? No,
that was Absolute Chaos is what it was called.
What was Sketchy Styles?
That was my band in high school.
Oh, okay. I was like, I fucking remember another band.
So I played in Sketchy Styles in high school, and that was like a ska band. And then my senior year of high school, I joined the choir at school, and that was a big turning point in my life in terms of, because I always was encouraged to do music, and my family was very encouraging of it and everything. But hearing from an outside perspective, Jennifer Cisamai at the time, now Jennifer Escobar, who was the choir teacher, who really kind of drove it into all of her students that, like, if you put the work in, you can succeed. And so kind of hearing that from an outside perspective really helped me instill that in myself.
Yeah, solidify that it's possible.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started taking some voice lessons, auditioned for Cal State Long Beach for like a vocal performance major. Did that for a couple years, and then kind of wasn't feeling that I really wanted to go into like the classical operatic style of singing. And at that point, I did a weekend workshop with Jennifer Escobar up in Sonoma, California, with a popular choir called Chanticleer. And I was talking to some of their members, and one thing that one of their singers, Brian Henman, mentioned to me was that, like, when he dropped out of school, it was because he had learned his own learning style, and through that, he knew that he wasn't going to use all the stuff that he was getting from school, but he knew how to educate himself. And so with that, I kind of changed my path in college and started going into more pop, jazz, R&B stuff. And so that's a lot of the stuff that I do now.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was all those things were like really important.
And then 2 questions to kind of throw them out there. Would you say that if your parents hadn't gone through that divorce, you would have stuck to music as strongly as you did because of it? Or did that have like a major impact, or music was something that, because I guess what I'm getting at is there's always a why.
Yeah.
When you do something for business, right? Yeah. Whether it is you see a certain vision for yourself, you're going through some type of obstacle in your life. Was that major turning point for you? That was like your why, or the music was going to happen regardless?
I think without knowing it, so a little bit more subconsciously, it was my why. If I hadn't gone through that, I may have played soccer for a little longer, or I don't know if I would have taken to it as strongly. Yeah, you know. I think it did have a large part.
It's sometimes you don't really understand people's whys, you know. And coming from a business perspective, and I understand you as yourself as well, it's kind of hard to explain the why sometimes to people. At least for them to comprehend fully. Yeah. You know, but because it's like, oh, well, if this didn't happen in my life, then I probably wouldn't be here, you know? Or if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be in this situation. But it's always interesting to me to find out, like, you know, this was my why, because, you know, sometimes to me, I'm trying to put together, is it always an obstacle in someone's life that leads them to be successful in what they're doing? You know?
I don't think it always has to be, but I think it's a strong impulse to kind of get moving on something. Yeah. And there's a book called Start With Why. Okay. I forget who the author is. Steven, I forget what his last name is.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And so, that kind of just, I don't even think I finished reading it, but I read most of it. And the idea of understanding your why can really help give you a direction and a focus, and can really help keep you motivated. And so once I understood that a little bit more, because like a lot of times there's always a why into whatever you're doing. Yeah. But sometimes you don't understand it. But if you can clarify it a little bit, sometimes that'll give you just a huge push in whatever you're doing. You know?
I 100% agree. Yeah. I just want to touch on that. And also in terms of, you talked to Brian Hinman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of learning your own, or understanding your own learning style.
Yeah.
If you can explain a little bit more on, you know, not necessarily following the traditional school path that he took, and whatever learning style he started to develop and to act on. How did that affect you? Because you were still in school. So what do you mean you developed your own learning style and switched to pop and jazz?
Well, luckily, I was friends with the counselor there, so I was able to kind of maneuver the system a little bit. So I didn't have to do a jazz degree, I didn't have to do a classical degree, but I kind of had a little bit more of a vision of what I wanted to do. And so I took the classes that were going to educate me on the things that I needed to get there.
Okay, and they kind of just self-develop your own section of part of a degree, or
Kind of, yeah. Like I did a BA in music, and most people do a BM, which is a bachelor's of music, like a performing degree. And I did a BA, which is a bachelor of arts, which usually is a little bit more lax in terms of performance, and it's a little bit more research based. But luckily, since I was friends with the advisor there, I was able to take all the performance classes that I wanted to. So I was singing in like the jazz choir, and I was playing guitar in the jazz combos, and I took jazz theory and jazz history and jazz arranging because I wanted to do more jazz R&B type stuff. But I also wanted to have a strong foundation in kind of the classical genre to be able to teach and to have that foundation. To be able to build upon.
Yeah.
So I was able to do
so you meshed all of them together.
Yeah. And also I think the other thing that I got out of that conversation with Brian was just not I feel like it's easy to kind of just go through the motions in college and take whatever classes you need or do the homework, and then you get out and you're like, now what? Because I feel like a lot of it is kind of fed to you. And it's like, okay, here's the information, memorize it, put that same information on the test, you get a good grade, and then now what? Like once you're out of school, unless you have like some type of vision or an idea of where you want to go. Yeah, exactly. So learning how to apply it and what you need to learn, or maybe it's like something you need to learn, but the way you're learning it is not working. So maybe you take a different route to learn that same concept.
Yeah, because I feel like school is such on a timeline, and I tell my guys here, Mark and Arturo, younger guys, they stopped going to school, to college. And it's not like, hey, you come here, you have to stop going to school. And I just felt that I gave my own 2 cents. And obviously it's their decision whether or not they want to go to school. I went to school and I took a break for a little while. I'm planning on going back. We'll get into that later. But in terms of stopping going to school for them to learn in-house in a field that they want to be a part in, and then go back to school when they're a little bit older, plus they have a little bit more knowledge to understand the curriculum and how to apply it in real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's
definitely.
like, hey, you know what? School, you'll be going right now. You may not know how to understand this stuff if you don't actually if you're not in the environment first, and then go back to school, understand it. You're like, oh, wow, I remember doing this. Now I can make connections.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like learning styles, I feel like school to me is a little bit too much pushed on a timeline. I feel that, you're not bad mouth, but you're almost frowned upon if you don't go to college directly after high school. But I feel sometimes it's good to get a little bit of work experience in the field that you want to be in, and, mature a little bit, and then further understand that field that you're trying to go into. You know?
Absolutely.
In terms of music, dude, because I know financials are a big thing in any industry. Obviously, the cost of living in California is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
How common is it for a musician to make a living? Obviously, your situation is different in the sense that, you got a solid foundation, you got your college, background and education in music. But for someone that's just trying to gig, or even someone equivalent to yourself that has the same schooling, how hard is it to make it in the music industry?
I think depending on what you're doing and what style of stuff you're doing and how willing you are to put the work in, really makes a big difference. So it can be difficult if you're like, okay, I only want to do this one thing, and if that doesn't pay a lot, then it is difficult. And I think
what's an example?
If you only want to do say like a certain style in jazz, like say the only thing you play is bebop.
Okay.
Right. And so at times it can be difficult to make money. It's a style that a lot of times is very fast, like quick upbeat jazz.
Okay.
Charlie Parker is like the most popular bebop saxophonist.
Research that.
And like it was really popular in like the 1960s and stuff.
Okay.
But if that's like all you play, it's a little bit hard because
Find
jazz
gigs,
jazz music in general doesn't pay a ton. And then to narrow yourself even more is difficult. Yeah. So that's the reason that I do a lot of different type of things, because if say I lost one of those gigs, I have 9 others that I'm doing on a weekly basis. So it's okay. I can like maneuver around that and then replace it with something else.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel, like I said, jazz is, you really don't go too many, at least the places that I go to, I really don't see jazz music. I mean, you almost have to go to like a specific spot to go hear that type of music. It's not like you go to any restaurant, they got people playing live bands all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess that is difficult.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is it kind of is important to understand like why you're doing it even after college and stuff like that. So if you're only doing music for the money, then it gets a little bit tricky because for the most part, there's not a ton of money.
You have to be passionate about it, just like in anything.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. But like if that's all you're doing it for, then you can burn out. Yeah, you can burn out real quick before you ever get to where you want to be.
I mean that's just like in anything, because in most industries you don't start seeing money until after a while, and especially if you're trying to build that baseline foundation, you have to be diversified. You can't just play, jazz or pop, or I mean nowadays I feel like Tekashi 6ix9ine on the guitar or something like that. But yeah, no, that's super important. What does an average gig pay? Like, I mean, how do you go about pricing and stuff like that?
Yeah, it really depends, and oftentimes how I negotiate things will be dependent upon kind of the timeline of things. So if there's a wedding that I get called for that is 2 months from now, and say it pays $1,000
for the group or for you?
For me, like just an example. Like a lot of them.
Is that common or no?
No, I would say most wedding gigs pay between like on the very low end would be like $200, $250. On the higher end would be
per person.
Yeah, per person.
Okay.
Would be I don't know, anywhere from like $600 to $1,000.
Okay.
For bigger like corporate gigs, then it pays more.
So something like to paint a picture for people, something like your wedding, you had like 6 people in that band or 7 people in that band there, right?
Yeah, there was 7.
If that was like a full price charged gig, what would that cost to have 7 people there?
Well, see, that's the other thing. You're not just paying for the musicians on that
they gotta learn the music, right?
Yeah. So if there needs to be a rehearsal, that's kind of part of what the fee goes into. All the hours spent with on the phone with the wedding kind of planner, and all the behind the scenes stuff that will go on for that is included in the price.
I'm assuming that you don't practice at someone's house, or maybe you do. You have to rent like a studio, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so
then
studio time and
and a lot of times they're included in the contract is staging, is lighting, is like a whole bunch of other like the sound system. To pay for the sound person to like do all this stuff. Yeah. So if you're gonna have a band like that, I mean, it's not.
So something like just a ballpark price for something like that at your wedding. If someone wanted at their wedding a 7-piece with the lights and the DJ and all that stuff, how much does that look like? $5,000, something like that, or?
It'd probably be a little bit more. Probably be about 8 or 10.
Shit, and that's for the whole night, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Damn, that's crazy. But it's like it's not only it's your job, it's like an art, and plus all the other stuff that goes into.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so kind of getting back to your original question, like if say there's a wedding in 2 months that pays $500, right? I might commit to that. But if, say, there's a wedding that calls for something tomorrow that only pays like $300, if I don't have anything tomorrow, then I'll probably take that.
How do you do? You have to know the music already then.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of the wedding receptions, a lot of the music is very similar.
Okay.
In terms of like top 40s and pop music.
Okay, so it's just like it's in your arsenal already of songs that you know.
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
And then there may be a few songs that you have to learn. Sometimes there are a lot, so you'll stay up all night learning that stuff. If it's
that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, we want Britney Spears, "Hit Me Baby One More Time." We're like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, most of the stuff is kind of similar music, wedding to wedding.
Okay.
But so if it's something that I know that I'm probably not going to get a higher paying gig for on a certain day, then I'll take the gig and put it in my calendar. But if somebody calls me and it's like the middle of wedding season and it's like 2 months out and they're trying to pay me like...
What's wedding season?
Well,
like when is that?
summer wedding season is like May, June, July,
Okay.
and then there's like the fall wedding season. It's a little bit blurry now because people just have weddings all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, what is it? I was like, oh,
yeah,
certain weeks I got to get married.
yeah. But now, like, okay, the fall wedding season is
Okay.
like September, October.
Like maybe like during Christmas time, most people get engaged or something like that. And then I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah. So if somebody calls me way in advance for a gig during that time on like a Saturday night that only pays like $200, I'm not gonna take that.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, okay, you can mark me down, but I'll give you a contract that says if I need to back out of it up until like 2 weeks in advance, then let's do that. You know, because I can't, if I know that there's a chance that I'm going to get a gig that pays 5 times more.
Yeah.
And
Why would you take that?
There's a good, exactly. So why would I take the lower paying one?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I price things.
That's kind of stressful.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean,
you're used to it by now.
Yeah, you kind of
Like,
get used to it. And then there are some things
because you're
where,
kind of theoretically setting up money in advance, taking a risk that you're not going to get more. So you can really never dictate how much money you're making every month.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you, I mean, I'm sure like you have a number that you shoot for on the year, but
yeah, and so kind of the way that I plan it out is I have to kind of make guesstimations
of quarterly or something like that.
Yeah, quarterly or yearly, like what each group or what each kind of business is paying me, like the few years prior, and then I can judge how
Based
much I'm
off
going
that.
to make. And I have kind of in terms of like my annual income, I have like I started out at a certain amount when I got out of college, and it was real low. And then so I have like a certain goal that I try to reach every year
Each
more
time.
than that. And so so that's kind of how in terms of business stuff.
Yeah.
And then there are some things that I do mostly for the creative aspect in terms of. There's one group that I have called M&M, E-M-M-E-M.
Okay, yeah.
And so we put out like a little acoustic album, and we're working on a full band album. And with that, like with the music that we put out, we're not making a bunch of money off of that. Like we're basically planning to make little to nothing because of what we put into it. And then with how much you get paid from like Spotify and iTunes, it's almost
like
nothing.
cents on the dollar.
Yeah. So like even less than that, like a percentage of a cent on the dollar.
Yeah.
So you make like almost nothing from that, but that is a very
Exposure.
big creative outlet for me that I do as more of a passion project.
Okay.
You know?
Which is good, and that stuff probably ends up getting paid for at some. You just got to put it in the right person's hands, and
Yeah, I mean, like, and to a certain extent, we do get like exposure and paid from that because then we have something to hand, like whether we're doing bar gigs or restaurant gigs.
yeah, because
we
you do
have
that
something
one
to
spot
hand
in
them.
Long Beach, right?
Yeah, Michael's on Naples.
Okay.
we play there, and so technically that's another thing, like having kind of backups to stuff.
Yeah.
So technically, M&M is at Michael's on Naples every Saturday, but I often do weddings on Saturdays because they pay a lot more.
Yeah.
But if for some reason I don't have a wedding on Saturday, then I'm there at Michael's on Naples, and I know I have that every Saturday if I don't have something else. So I'm
And
getting
is that
some,
like you
some
let them know
income.
the day before? Hey, I'm going to be there. I'm not going to be there, or
Usually we try to plan it loosely monthly. So like at the beginning of the month, we'll kind of divvy up like, okay, are you available all these Saturdays? Which ones aren't you? And then so that's a 2-person group.
Yeah.
So like this month, I'm not available any Saturday. So she's taking all of those, and if she can't do one, then she'll get a sub band to take over.
Okay.
And so that's kind of just like part of the.
so she'll
part
just
of
sing
the
by
game.
herself then.
Well, no, she'll hire another guitarist.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if she's not available for one and I am, then I'll take that. I'll bring somebody else in.
Okay.
And yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ever need a singer, dude, I got you.
Yeah, there you go. So
Acapella.
having kind of a structure of kind of like my baseline stuff, and then things that I know are going to pay at least relatively a certain amount per year. Like even with the wedding band, I have a relative idea of like, okay, I know the band is going to get at least this many gigs, so I can count on at least this much money. And for me, planning on those kind of at leasts is important for me, because if I try to plan like, okay, this year we made this much, so next year I can plan on this much.
No.
I don't do that. So I know like, okay, I shortchange myself on everything to make sure that I know I always have that amount.
Yeah.
And if I were to do it the other way, whereas like I'm guesstimating over,
Yeah.
then
You're
that
like,
gets
hey, I'm
tricky.
supposed to make 150 grand this year, and I'm at 50.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of having that in the structure.
That's tough, man. Because I know I have a hard time without projections. I like to see numbers and projections and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is why we systemize a lot of our boot camp stuff to be on automatic bill pay and like contracts and things, so I can make projections. Because it's hard to grow a brick and mortar business without some type of analytics and being able to project. And you know, if I don't know what's going to happen next month, then I don't even know if I would keep the lights on, you know. But if I have people in contracts and I know that, okay, I can make this move, I can guarantee and provide more financial stability for employees. Like, hey, you're going to have a job next month. But you know, if I have everybody like on a month-to-month boot camp, or like they do it at Zumba, you pay per class. You know, if they come in, oh, I'm gonna pay $5 per class, and no one shows up this week, and I'm looking over at Mark and Arturo. I'm like, hey, so it's a couple of noodles, right?
Yeah.
You know,
but I'm sure there's like certain times of the year that are kind of, you can predict are going to be a little bit slower, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. But the beauty about the automatic bill pay is that even if it's slow, it's just like LA Fitness. People, it might be slow in the gym, but everybody's still getting billed.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes it easier for me to sustain myself throughout the year and less stress on me, you know, because I know I've been to that time where we would charge per week or per class or month to month, no contracts, and it's just like, shit, okay, this month is gonna be tough, you know, because you can't. For me, I guess, so to say, it was like I couldn't purchase these treadmills. Say the treadmills were like $10,000, right? And I know this month I made an extra X amount of money, so I could afford those treadmills. But if I don't make that money that next month, and I still have to make a payment on treadmills, I'm like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah.
But now that people are on automatic bill pay, I know this amount of money is coming every month, so I can, you know, delegate, hey, this goes here, this goes there, this goes here, this goes here.
Yeah.
So I mean,
sure.
I commend you on that, because that's definitely tough for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a little tricky, but like working kind of in the similar situation the past few years, I'm able to
understanding of it.
Yeah, like to tell, okay, this month I can kind of plan to not make as much money, and so I'm saving a little bit from these other months to make up for that, as well as like I don't have an automatic kind of
contract or something like
contract type of thing, but I do know that so like a few of my jobs I'm on salary for.
Okay, that's not bad.
So I know, like, I'm making this much for the year, and it's for those I have it divided up into like every 2 weeks.
Positions for music?
Not really.
Things like a per diem or.
Well, yeah, it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're teaching at a school,
okay,
it's a teaching job, you know. So a lot of times it will be salary. If it's just like a music studio, then a lot of times it's not. But if you're like, say you're
kind of like
a high school music
teacher,
you know what you're gonna make. You know, or at like some of the churches that I work at, their salary, so I know what I'm gonna make. And so that allows me to have that baseline and the freedom to be more creative.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. Another question, because I know I've gotten this question from different people. As far as music and being a sense how should I word this? Like when people use certain songs to motivate them, like if you could give me like your background or your thoughts on like, this song pumps me up, like music as motivation or music in terms of like inspiring you to do stuff. If you can elaborate on what you know about that or how people use music in that aspect.
Yeah. So I think that music can obviously play and does play a large role in.
Well, I mean, let's cut you off real quick because I kind of remember I was going to go with this. Just like the psychology of colors.
Yeah.
You know, on how like certain colors bring out different energy in the room. Yeah. Maybe like the psychological aspect of music and how it affects people's moods and can make them more productive, or, you know, obviously when people are mourning or this, that, and the other. Your perspective or your knowledge on that.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the whole reason in movies that the music is so important. You know, because if you're trying to have like a cool scene, say it's like a Will Smith, like Bad Boys 3 that's like coming out, right? If they have a scene where it's Martin Lawrence and Will Smith and they're like doing a slow-mo walk thing down the street there, and they're trying to be cool, but they have some shitty music playing.
Yeah, just throws off the vibe.
Yeah, it throws off the entire thing, right? So you got to have music for that. If there's a dramatic moment in like any TV series, maybe they'll have like a solo piano with a lot of reverb on it, you know, and it completely shifts the entire mood. And in terms of kind of like the psychology of that, like music does have an impact on you, right? And so like a lot of times in music therapy stuff, or people with like just having issues later in life, maybe like a lot of times what they'll do is play music from their era, and it will help them trigger certain things and trigger memories that will come up and be able to relate to those things. And maybe that can sometimes pull them to remember certain parts or certain emotions, at least, that they felt at that time in their life.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a huge believer. I just wanted to hear your side. I still want to continue to hear your side about this because I'm a huge J. Cole fan. And there's like some artists or some songs that you listen to that you just get like, you so into the lyrics, into the beat, and you get like goosebumps, you know?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I'm like, damn, I'm fucking feeling this shit. You know, it's hyping me up. It's motivated. I'll be driving to work in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning. I'm just like, dude, just vibing out to certain songs. And I'm a huge believer in psychology of colors. That's why this room is green, because of high energy and things like that. But I didn't know I know this stuff is psychologically proven, like the colors of yellow and red, you know, stimulate hunger and things like that. But are there anything in terms of music that stimulate like a happy mood, or like this type of music does this or this type of music does that? Or
yeah, I mean, beyond the, or
is it like, I don't mean to cut you off again, or is it case by case, like this person will be affected this way by this type of music, and this person may be affected this way by this type of music? But in the terms of psychology colors, normally the brighter colors are enlightening and high energy versus the darker colors are dimming and, you know, put you more in of a sulking mood, so to say.
Yeah, I think it's both. There are certain types of music that will connect with the person more. Like someone else may feel that same way about J. Cole, or that you do about J. Cole, as if they listen to like a Kendrick Lamar album and they vibe with that, you know? So like that's a personal experience. But on the whole, there is a bit of kind of a general feel that people will get from certain types of music. Like if you are like cruising down to the beach, going down like Beach Boulevard, you roll the windows down and put some Bob Marley on, like that's a feel good vibe. Yeah. You know, or if you're like,
does the feel good vibe, or does the mood have to do so much with the style or tempo, or that really doesn't have to do anything? Because, you know, faster paced music, it's kind of, you know, loosely related to workout, maybe. Does that have anything to do with mood, or is it really just depends on?
Yeah, absolutely. That plays a role in it. The tempo, the kind of the style of music, the instrumentation, and then you can break it down into more specific things like the key of the song. And some keys are darker, some keys are brighter. Yeah. And then you can break it down. Even like some people get like real theoretical with it in terms of so each tone and each note has a certain like range frequency, right? And so like there's what most people tune to is A440. Like instruments, they're all tuned to A440, right? And so some people feel that it resonates more with people's bodies at A432. So they'll make everything 8 cents flat. Right, and that just it gives a different sound.
People, this is how you know Emilio knows what the fuck he's talking about. Because I have 8 cents flat on the note, bro. Like I've never heard anybody talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean that's getting like very deep into it. Yeah, but on a more kind of cover level, the speed of the music, the tempo, how the beat is makes a big difference in how you're feeling. Okay. So yeah, so I mean there's like music therapy is definitely like its own thing. Yeah, it's a thing where people use different music and different tones, and oftentimes like I don't have a background in music therapy, but I will use a lot of music in terms of just my day-to-day life. Yeah. In terms of like if I need
self-motivation or something.
Self-motivation. Like some people have coffee. Some people play upbeat music. Yeah. You know, like if I'm feeling real down.
So we'll do both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real amped.
Yeah. And some people like have certain music that they listen to when they're feeling depressed. And kind of so on and so forth. But yeah, it definitely has a large effect on you.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in that, dude, because I'm big on self-motivation because, like I said, like these podcasts and things like that get a person from point A to B and they get them there, but you got to have something that's self-motivating or self-stimulating to get you through on the daily, whether it's a song that you listen to, a ritual in the morning. And for me, music is such a big factor in my business because the tempo of the class and how the class runs and the vibe of the boot camps and the training is all really, it's not all based, but a big portion of it is people's attitudes are based off the music. You know, some days we'll go in here and we have disco. You know, some days we'll go like when personal training, we'll have rap, we'll have rock, you know, but they're usually all some type of upbeat music that brings people's levels up. And you'll notice that, you know, sometimes if someone's on the Bluetooth and a song plays and then another song comes on that has nothing to do with the playlist and everybody's like,
yeah, it completely shifts the vibe.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah, it shifts the vibe completely. Like, dude, I'm in the middle of my workout. What the hell is this?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, let me pick the next song. And then everything's back up.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how music plays such a big factor in that. And I'm a firm believer in that because I have my ritual with artists and songs and things that I listen to. I have like a feel-good music. Like one of mine is Calvin Harris, Thinking About You. That song when I'm driving is just like, that's like a driving song to me.
Yeah.
You know, just it's a feel-good song. Then, you know, obviously like the rap artists and things like that. There's, you know, different songs for different moods.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, that was cool to listen about
that can be like part of your motivation as well, right? So like if we tie in the people's why and then they have their kind of music that they go to kind of get them there, like that can really change. I mean, for me, that's what a lot of my world revolves around is having like a strong why and then like music to get me there. Whether that's like if I'm in a bad mood or a happy mood, and using that to get where you need to go. You know?
No, 100%. In terms of like obstacles that you've been through, this is more shift towards like an entrepreneur aspect. What's one of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome in terms of being in business for yourself, music wise or whatever it may be?
Well, I think one thing that I'm trying to figure out right now or do better at is just self-promotion. Because in music, like
in terms of marketing or?
Yeah, basically in terms of marketing, because you can be the greatest musician.
If nobody knows about you.
Exactly. Nobody knows about you. You're not going to get a gig and stuff like that. So like I'm terrible with social media stuff.
Oh yeah. Social media is our bread and butter, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of times in today's society, like it is the bread and butter of a lot of different industries.
You can be like a shitty artist or a shitty trainer, but you have a good following, like people will book you.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something that I'm trying to, and that I need to get better at is just posting more videos of me playing
content
and like posting more about the gigs that I have to get more people to them and stuff like that is very important because like, okay, I learned what I kind of needed to in school in terms of like theory and stuff. But
now you gotta showcase it.
Yeah. Now in terms of getting gigs and stuff like that, being able to promote and to market is real important.
No, that's a great point because I feel that's universal across all business levels, you know, whether it's music, whether it's fitness, and I just started a meal prep and food. Like if nobody knows what I'm cooking or how I'm cooking it or what I'm doing, no one's gonna buy it. People like to see pictures. They like to see live stuff. So I could see that how, you know, obviously the marketing and the promotion is huge when it comes to any business. So that's one of your biggest obstacles right now?
Yeah, definitely.
Why? Just because of lack of, not effort, so to say, but lack of just paying attention to that stuff and focusing more on other aspects? Or
yeah, like one thing that I'm really big on is always being prepared. So I spend a lot of my time making sure that I know the music inside and out. If somebody doesn't learn that part, I can cover it.
Okay.
And so like if there like something goes wrong and something happens in the song where like with the band like gets off or something, okay, if that were to happen, how can we get back on track?
Okay.
And so like that's a lot of where I spend my time.
Does that happen often or?
That goes into a little bit more of like who you're playing with and who you like hire.
Okay.
So like if I know that I'm playing with a band that I have no idea of who they are, how their level,
names.
their level of musicianship or like anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that I know as many parts as possible, just in case they're not super prepared.
Yeah.
Now, if that were to happen,
is that pretty common?
Kind of, yeah.
people just don't give a shit, then they're just like, all right, well,
just the
shut up for the paycheck.
lack of care. Yeah, exactly. And it happens a lot of times in like cover music because okay, you're playing a cover gig. It's not gonna be like this huge. It's not like you are John Mayer playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
like you don't have the care that he does because he's playing his own music to 70,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're
like
playing you're playing
September
a cover
by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, for like the 100th time this month.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have the care for that, but always putting the same
effort into everything you do.
Yeah, even on the crappy paying gigs.
Well, that's
really
that's
important,
good, man. Yeah,
you know, like, and that's one
because
thing
you never know who's there going to book you for your next gig.
Yeah, exactly, and just like even the other musicians there that you're playing with, like if you're doing like great, and then there's like somebody else who like hasn't learned half the tunes, like they're not going to get a call back. You are, you know. So yeah, so that's real important in terms of like my thinking. So spending a lot of time on
your time a little bit differently now.
Yeah, and spending a lot of my time on that is what I have done. So I think now I need to spend a little bit more time on the marketing aspect.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years in terms of business? Like in terms of musicianship and business.
So I one thing that I want to do, so now I'm married, right? And one thing that I want to do before I start having kids is to do much better with the marketing stuff, so that I can have a
more solid foundation.
Yeah, more solid foundation, and just a higher level of calls all the time, so that when
is there such thing as a higher level of clientele in that business too?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So the higher level of clientele, obviously they pay more.
Yeah.
Right, and then just having being more of an in-demand artist.
Would that be a higher profile person in terms of monetary value, or would that be a higher profile gig?
It can be either.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of times the higher, like the big corporate gigs, like for big companies,
like a company party or something.
Yeah, stuff like that will obviously pay better than somebody who's throwing like a background or a backyard party
or something.
Yeah. So having those, as well as just putting yourself out there enough to have people call you and want to work with you, and getting that steady stream of on-demand calls. You know, and so having that is important for me. Like we're planning on having kids maybe in like a few years. Yeah. So I've got a few years to do that, but I need to start now to get all the marketing going, to get the networking going more with the musicians that I want to work with. So when Crystal isn't working for a little bit, I can have that same amount of income or more, so that same level of income that I want, while still just having that, like being able to provide all that. You know?
Talk about a dad who's going to kill it with the lullabies right here.
I'll try, man.
This like another question that popped into my head when you were talking right now, in terms of like diversifying yourself and stuff. Have you ever had to sing in Spanish or sing in another language that you have no idea like how to speak in, but they want you to sing in that language?
Yeah. So
is that common or?
Well, so the thing with having a little bit of a classical background is that I've had to sing in English, Italian, Spanish, German, French.
Okay.
I think Chinese and Japanese as well.
Oh shit.
So and I'm not like very good at almost any of them besides English, you know. But in school, since I was like a classical voice major, I had to take some diction classes. So having a basic understanding of like French pronunciation and the difference between Italian and Spanish pronunciation, and having some knowledge of German pronunciation is helpful, because there's a song that a couple wanted last year, and there's a verse that's in French. And it's sung by the guy,
like,
and so
yeah.
And so when the band leader asked me, they're like, "Hey, are you able to do this?" I can say yeah, and not have any issue with it.
Okay, so it's common that stuff stuff
Yeah,
like that
I mean,
happens?
it's not
Okay.
like super common because we're
like fucking
like
mariachis and shit.
Yeah, most of the music that wedding bands that I play are
In
English
English.
predominant. But yeah, occasionally, or like in some like Catholic masses, that it's like a Christmas
Latin or
Eve
something.
thing. It's like a big combined mass, and they have a heavy
Okay,
like
Hispanic following, yeah.
Hispanic population. So then some of the stuff is in Spanish.
Okay.
You know? So
That's cool.
yeah, so that's it's helpful.
Kind of one last thing to leave it off on. As far as, well, two last things. One, your biggest accomplishment when it comes to music. Like, you've gotten this far. Like, man, Aaron, this situation or this accomplishment has been the best thus far in terms of your business.
In terms of business, I would say just so far, like I have like a certain like income that I'm trying to reach each year, and each year I've at least hit that. So that's just nice. And then also in terms of business, I have a reputation for always being prepared.
Okay.
And for me, that's huge.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have been able to keep a lot of work. Like if I work with somebody one time, oftentimes I'll get a call back from them because I'm always try to be prepared.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's just a quality of yours.
Well, yeah, I mean that
I feel like
try,
it's everything.
man,
Even when we come over here to do the podcast, I'm like, this dude has his bags, like here on time. I fucking struggle with being punctual all the time, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like those are, well, would you say that's in terms of an accomplishment, or that's just something that you've always been? You know what I mean?
Well, I think I've had that instilled in me by a few like select teachers in high school and in college. That were working in the music industry, and also having my own experience now and understanding that doesn't always happen. And there's more times than you would think that people do not come prepared. And because of that, they lose tons of work. They can be the most talented person in the world.
That's with everything.
Yeah. But if they're not, like, if they don't show up on time, if they don't come prepared, if they don't have a good attitude, who's going to want to work with you? I mean, there's like guitarists are a dime a dozen in this like city. You know?
Yeah,
so
just like trainers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so same idea. Like having a certain professionalism is very important. You know.
Yeah. And in terms of kind of to leave it off, we've gotten into a lot of cool stuff, and I'm going to have you on a bunch of other times. I mean, this is far from being over. Two pieces of advice you can give someone, whether one about music and then one about entrepreneurship. Or like a fun fact, maybe even about music, like, hey, that most people wouldn't know, or.
I don't really know if I have any fun facts about it. Yeah. I mean, since I
like Beethoven actually played punk rock, right?
I mean, most people, I don't know. I think it's a known fact that most people know that like Beethoven was deaf when he wrote most of his like most famous pieces.
Oh shit, I didn't fucking know.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe there's one. Yeah, and then what was the other one?
Piece of advice for those entrepreneurs, whether it's in music or any industry, something that maybe someone had told you, like a saying or something that stuck with you, like something that you hold close to your heart in terms of entrepreneurship and like, man, I stick to this, or this is my piece of advice for you.
Yeah. Well, okay. So aside from being professional, so we talked about that, like showing up on time, good attitude, being prepared. I think just being humble is also a big one. Yeah. You know, like it makes a big difference if
you know you're good and you don't act like it.
Yeah. Like if you're good, but you play up.
So you're telling me you know
game,
you're good, but you don't act like it.
Well, no. But I'm just saying, like, if you're good and you play up this whole big game, there's like what's the that's not cool. Yeah. Like, okay, that's whatever. And especially like if you play up like a huge big game, like that just goes into the whole attitude thing. Yeah. But if you're like a badass but you keep it mellow, like there's a fine balance between like promoting and because people got to know, but at the same time not like promoting like a big game about yourself. You know, so like if you're a badass, you got videos out there that like show you're playing and stuff, but you're not talking about it all the time. You can kind of let your playing do that for you. Like then
I
you're
feel that's
good,
big.
man.
You know, that's big because I feel like sometimes, I mean, I'm guilty of getting caught up in just like, you know, the marketing whole thing aspect, but I feel like the less I talk about a certain aspect, and then when someone comes and points out to you, like, "Oh, hey," talks about this, or it's more reassuring.
Yeah,
That you're on the right track and that you don't really have to overexpose anything. You could just let what you do speak for itself. That's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think that kind of goes into like just dealing with other people too, like building people up. You know, like because a lot of times it's like, okay, yeah, I'm better than you, and like it's all like that kind of style stuff. Like
nobody wants to work with you.
Yeah, nobody wants to work with you, and just like your style of living, like who wants to have that? You know, like if you're humble and you're badass, and you can help some people out, help bring them up, and help teach somebody, or maybe help give somebody get somebody a job who you know is a hard worker and stuff like that. Like building up the community is,
and then people want to be around you. You know,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like having that kind of community around you, and like if you do that with other people, then you start building a community of that, and then that's the kind of people you want to have around you, right?
Exactly.
Like okay, you notice this person is real hardworking, or this person is like trying to come up in whatever you're doing, so kind of give them a little boost, or like help them out a little bit, and then you build that around.
That's why oftentimes people are too concerned about competition.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like, oh, this person might come up on my fucking idea or what I'm doing. But no, those are two awesome pieces of advice. You know, the professionalism and the fun fact, Beethoven was deaf. I didn't know that. Yeah. But yeah, man. So like I said, thank you again for coming on here. I appreciate your time. Like I said, Emilio, he does all of the audio aspect stuff. Anthony does the videography. You know, a longtime friend of mine. Shit, probably one of my first friends. Really?
Yeah, me too.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Man, that was what, like at 3 or 4 years old?
Yeah.
That's probably when I could remember I had friends.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming, guys, and just kind of touch base on about me and Emilio. It's just, you know, especially for the entrepreneurship stuff. I know a lot of times people go through this cliche like lonely phase or this, that, and the other. You don't have to have a ton of friends, but if you keep like a close knit, small group of people, I feel that benefits you in the long run. And you really know someone's a true friend if, you know, regardless of how you act or the things that you do or time passes, you guys still pick up, you know, where you left off. That's definitely a true friendship and something that you should cherish, because I feel sometimes people get caught up in like trying to please people and have all these friends. But I'm a firm believer in that. I have very few friends, but many acquaintances.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to be careful on how you pick and choose your friends, and keep the people that treat you well close to you. And that goes back to the being humble and stuff like that. So that was a super good point. That one stood off to me. You know, and definitely take care of the people that take care of you.
Yeah.
So, all right, brother. Well, I appreciate having you on the show, and you know, we'll see a lot more of you. Thank you, Anthony, for the videography stuff. And stay tuned in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.